serious about business.
Business Access TV is here at the JSC Core Competencies to Excel as a Corporate Secretary. I'm your host, Andrew Laidley. Please stay with us.
I wish to welcome you to yet another workshop, Corporate Secretaries Workshop. As you know, we have these workshops each year, and the reason we continue to do so is that we feel that we should be at the cutting edge of any changes that is occurring in whether locally or globally. We feel that the workshops have been beneficial to us so far, and that with each day when we have these changes, we should continue to look at educating the persons in this industry. This morning and this workshop is very special, as we will be hosting, it is being hosted in association with the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators. And as we move towards introducing the Corporate Governance Index, I think today is especially important so that we can see how this can be incorporated into what we do as company secretaries and others within the industry. It is especially important that we look at this to see how our companies will score higher in terms of corporate governance. Today is intended to be a very good workshop based on the persons who will be presenting. So I invite you to stay tuned, ask the relevant questions, and ensure that when we leave here, we can implement what we have learned.
The Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators is an institution that certifies secretaries, chartered secretaries, and I believe it is the only institution in the world that does that. It's incorporated by Royal Charter and has its base in England, London, England. And our dear leader, Simon Osborne, is the CEO of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries. In Jamaica, we have the Association of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, which is a branch of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries. Today, we are very happy to be hosting this seminar with the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and I hope that what we present today, you might find something to take away from it, because we are going to try to give you something practical that you can use in your everyday life.
Governance has to suit each jurisdiction. One size cannot fit all. Even within a peer group of companies engaged in similar activities, similar business, because the dynamic is going to be different, because the business conditions are going to be different, the governance framework will necessarily be different. And as you comply or explain, also within a peer group of companies doing the same, broadly the same activity, you will find that they comply in different ways. And that's the beauty of a code of principles. So what do we mean by governance? The Cadbury definition, the process by which an organization is directed or controlled. The other perceived virtue of corporate governance on the part of politicians and policymakers is that it leads to increased opportunities and choice for all. Now that's one of those wonderful glib expressions that rolls off the tongue of a politician. And it sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But what on earth does it mean? As a political aspiration, it's great. Opportunities and choice for all. Hurrah, yeah, we'll all vote for that. But can we really expect corporate governance to deliver such an overtly political objective? I'll leave that one hanging in the air. Poor old Bob Diamond, he gets a bit of a caning over this one. he did actually say that corporate governance is not how you behave when you think no one is watching. He did actually say that. But I think it's a good reminder that, you know, there's no point trying to do one thing, say one thing and do another. That sort of hypocrisy, you'll get found out eventually. The truth will always out. Governance is concerned with the exercise of power, the role of directors, the responsibilities of shareholders, and how those are balanced. And it also deals with disclosure, transparency, accountability, internal control, and making sure you avoid that concentration of power in too few hands. Hence the desire, well, I mean, it's now become standard, certainly in the UK. America's finding it harder, but actually separating the roles of chairman and chief executive so that you achieve a more constructive tension at the top levels in the C-suite. What are some of the governance hot topics? Well, I don't know what it's like here, but remuneration in the UK never ceases to amaze me. I mean, and the way in which non-executive directors serving on remuneration committees aren't smelling the coffee, I just don't get it. But and the United States is just as bad. And what that is leading to is remuneration which is detached from performance, or levels of remuneration detached from performance, are just leading to increasing inequality of wealth. And I think that could lead to unfortunate consequences socially. And it's something that has to be tackled. Hot topic. Legal risk has risen up the scale of corporate risks. The whole board diversity thing. Gender is a major factor. But there is no doubt about it, board behaviour improves the more women join the board. And I know that from my own experience, funny enough, in a charity where I was deputy chair and I chaired the nomination committee. And I had to wield the knife. I removed 6 older male trustees, brought in 4 ladies, all of whom were younger. The average age came down. The speed with which business was transacted improved. Shorter board meetings, I'll drink to that. Made a difference. Now that's one example, but I think there's no doubt about it that I think the presence of women in boardrooms adds beneficially to the decision-making process. You've got the whole responsible capitalism issue, the managing of stakeholders and accountability to wider stakeholders. And that, interestingly, has led to the appointment of a committee now for a code of governance for private companies. I think that's long overdue in the UK. When you think about some of the bigger private companies, and I'm sure you've got them here, if one of those collapses, the impact on the economy and on the government could be significant. And then the whole question of board evaluations. Following the financial crisis, ICSA did some work on boardroom behaviours, the conclusion of which were 4 uncomfortable truths. Well-run companies can make strategic and sometimes catastrophic misjudgments. Risk management not properly overseen, monitored or reviewed by the board. Often it was just left to the audit committee. It's a board responsibility, is oversight of risk. Remuneration and incentivization not aligned with shareholders' interests, and a failure to inform stakeholders, not just shareholders, stakeholders, sufficiently. That work we did identified 3 areas needing attention. Institutional. Are corporate governance policies and architecture fit for purpose? Has management installed adequate processes and systems? And are directors exhibiting appropriate behaviours? So we had there the institutional, the organisational, and the behavioural. Now, we identified in that work that good practice boardroom behaviour was characterised by those 9 features. So clear understanding of the board's role. The board is there to oversee the management of the business. The board is not there to manage the business. And non-executive directors forget it's a case of noses in, fingers out. They smell the state of the business, they don't finger it. Does this business pass the smell test? Once the non-executive directors start interfering in the management of the business, it's very hard to hold an executive to account. You can't. You've syndicated the responsibility and the liability. Appropriate deployment of knowledge, skills, experience and judgment. So what balance of those have you got on the board? Independent thinking. Assumptions and established orthodoxy need to be questioned. Challenge has to be constructive. If people come onto a board full of suspicion or just trying to show off what a tough guy I am, I'll show these executives up for a load of incompetent idiots. If that's the mentality which a non-executive has, they're asking for trouble because it will just lead to tension, in fact, conflict on the board. Non-executive directors have to be constructive friends of the management team. Can't overemphasize that. Constructive friends. Yes, and it's knowing how to challenge in a way which doesn't put people's backs up. And it requires a skill, emotional intelligence for a start. Yes, there has to be rigorous debate. The decision-making environment has to be supportive. There needs to be a shared vision. And for the chair, it's vital to close each item of business in a timely way, not let it go round and round and round ad nauseam. That's not the way to do it.
We go to a short break. More when we return.
Doggin Global Introduction. Doggin Global is an integrated multidisciplinary professional service firm. We are integrated as one firm and provide several professional services, including audit, accounting, tax, IT, risk, HR, performance, M&A, corporate recovery, and other advisory services. The firm is organized in several professional service units, which includes Doggin Auditors, Doggin Advisors, Doggin Legal, Doggin Finance, Doggin HR Solutions, Doggin Tech Solutions, Doggin Media, Doggin Corporate Secretarial. If you are interested in any of our services, please contact us for a free quote. Email info@doggin.global. Website doggin.global.
Welcome back to BATV's coverage of the JSC core competencies to excel as a corporate secretary.
We are now going to have a panel discussion, as you will see, and members of the local chapter will be participating, and Mrs. Henry Pottinger is going to be the moderator, and they're going to be talking about things that happen in a very practical way.
How rewarding is your job as a company secretary? Any tips that you can give to budding company secretaries, people who are waiting in the wings to take over your jobs? For me, I enjoy my job. I will not work anywhere else until I retire than with KPMG. As to rewarding, yes, it is rewarding in many respects. I like to see that the people who I work with, they are enabled, they are eloquent, they can answer questions from shareholders, they deal with matters like that with alacrity, and they're very responsive.
It's not glamorous in the sense that if the reward you're looking for is your name in lights, it's clearly the wrong profession for you. So I'm glad that Liz actually said the word enable, because you are an enabler. You're a facilitator. You know, we all understand, certainly after listening to Simon this morning, the importance of corporate governance. Well, all of that falls on your shoulders for you to administer. You pull it together. You keep all the moving pieces going in unison, and you don't, there will be no name in lights, certainly not not where I operate for that. So if that's what you, but it can be, obviously it's very rewarding in other ways. Just in terms of tips, I can't stress enough, well, there are two main things I'll say. One is that just you have to have a high level of administrative capability, and whether that, and obviously you can't do it on your own. So whether it means an internal team or going for external support, you have to be extremely organized, and you have to make sure that you create a lot of systems which allow you to ensure that you comply with all the requirements that you have, which are numerous. Other than that, I can't stress enough the importance of what we keep calling soft skills, but they're not soft at all because they're critical for the role. Definitely, there's a higher level of judgment and diplomacy and management of relationships of people which is involved. We talked a little bit earlier about the relationship between, the tension between management and the board, which can sometimes exist. And in that case, your role is critical because you really are the diplomat who has to kind of navigate those two relationships and those two different sets of roles within a company. So that I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that you develop your relationships and that you manage personalities.
I recall some years ago I did a document for my chairman, and I went to him and I'm explaining to him what it is that I'm doing and what it is that he needs. He says to me, where I must sign. So it gives you that level of confidence and trust, and to ensure that what you're doing and what you're presenting is correct. And you must build up that whole self-integrity so that, it is not questioned. And I feel that if I have to take something to somebody and they ask me, so where is this or what is that? I do my own self-assessment, because when I do a document, it says where, what, when, why, who, and so forth. So I ask myself those questions so that, you can develop that trust when you're working with somebody.
The job is really very, very interesting. The things that come across your desk are amazing, dynamic, invigorating, challenging. Scope is very, very diverse. Corporate governance has really taken its hold, rather, on Jamaica and within the Caribbean. There is just so much that we have to learn and offer to our clients and to ourselves. Certainly, if someone is looking at this as a profession, I think corporate governance is the way to go. That's just me personally. You'll always assist and help your clients, but there's always a nuance on what has occurred, what should have been done, and how we're going to correct it. And that's what I love about it. And working with PwC and my team, we have just so much to do. You've got to be very structured, lists, and more lists. You have to be very detail-oriented and be able to pick up, and very meticulous, and be able to pick up errors very easily.
In my role as a corporate secretary, the reward for me is I am constantly learning. Every day there is something that I didn't know, or something now that I have to go and know. And it is, no 2 days are ever the same. Especially in our company, which we tend to be very entrepreneurial, the ideas come, and as a company secretary and as compliance, I have to research to say, can it be done, can it not be done? Would this be in breach of anything? I would also advise that the regulators are good allies. From where I sit, I call them a lot because I need their guidance. They are more intimate with the laws and regulations and how they interpret what I am asking them to just bounce things off. So I would ask you to use them up. The company's office, the stock exchange, the Bank of Jamaica, the FSC, they're all very open to questions. No one has said no to me yet. Even if they don't know the answer, they'll research it and get back to us. And our real success lies in having a great team behind us, including KPMG. And,
Thank you.
and our team in Dom Rep, Trinidad and Jamaica, that supports me, because we just could not do it alone.
Thanks a lot, ladies. I hope then that those of you in the audience found something informative, instructive, that you can take away from this panel discussion.
Coming up after the break, what companies need to know about the Corporate Governance Index.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters.
Call us at 876-291-6233 or 876-376-4225. Email sales@batvja.com.
Hi, it's Novia MacDonald-White, Senior Associate Editor at the Jamaica Observer. And guess what? You are watching Business Access Television.
Welcome back to BATV's coverage of the JSE core competencies to excel as a corporate secretary.
So what is this corporate governance index that we have been talking about? And it really is a tool that has been developed to measure how all entities that are listed, at least surely for us listed on the stock exchange, how it conforms to various established corporate governance principles. Now, typically, the index has a numerical value, right, where the extremes of the values are overall good and poor. And also, it assists in improving the transparency and ultimately FDI for countries. Because research has shown that countries and surely listed companies, like using the stock exchanges that have a corporate governance index, especially when there's not very strong regulatory environment for them to operate within, the corporate governance index has actually helped to create greater investment opportunities. And what the research has shown is that countries with the indices have shown significant growth in corporate governance practices. So let's talk a little about the corporate governance index in Jamaica. And the index has been developed by the Jamaica Stock Exchange. As I indicated before, it's the first for the Caribbean region. The process that is being utilized is that it's going to be automatic, so that whether you're listed on the junior market or you're listed on the main market, you are going to be assessed using the index manual. So the purpose of the index, as stated by the Jamaica Stock Exchange, is to first of all periodically measure listed companies' conformance to required corporate governance principles and practices. It also should help to give companies an opportunity to differentiate themselves from other companies, because while all companies are listed and expected to be guided by certain principles and certain rules and certain legislations, you can differentiate yourself by the score that you probably will get based on the fact that you are adhering to a number of these principles. It will also provide a benchmark by which other parties, external parties, locally and internationally now, can gauge companies' adherence to corporate governance practices.
Every year, we have a workshop for the corporate secretary because we realize that they are an integral part of the corporate governance and effectiveness of publicly listed companies, whether it's on the junior exchange or the big board. And we were fortunate in that the head of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of the UK was coming on a visit to Jamaica to meet with the Jamaica Stock Exchange, because we are in the process of representing them in providing training and continuing development for corporate secretaries, persons who want to be corporate secretaries, and as a matter of fact, there is an upcoming fast track that's going to be available for attorneys and chartered accountants who invariably are performing the duties of the chartered secretary, and what it will allow them to do is to have the formal chartered secretary designation. So we felt that this was very important to continue to lift the profile of the chartered secretary and their role in listed companies.
I thought the conference was excellent, actually. The seminar was excellent. It touched on very important aspects that are critical for the development of our businesses within Jamaica and internationally, and for our companies, concentrating on corporate governance and the amendments that have just occurred in the Companies Act and why corporate governance is so important. So I encourage everyone to be at the next seminar.
The governance is here to stay. There's no doubt about that. And it's the proportionate application of governance principles which is so important in all types of organisation. But in order to be able to do that, every organisation needs to be clear about its organisational purpose. Then the board, the directors, need to be clear about the key values by which that purpose is going to be delivered. Only then can you devise a governance framework for your particular type of organisation. Every organisation, however big, however small, needs to do that.
Who does corporate governance benefit again?
Obviously, it benefits the companies themselves, it benefits their shareholders as the owners, or if it's an unincorporated body, the members. But it also benefits wider society. I think that's the important point. Their employees, those with whom they do business, and ultimately it benefits the government, because if an enterprise fails and is employing people and it fails because of poor governance practices, the ultimate responsibility financially was going to fall on the government, for example in social security payouts for unemployed people. I think also if companies fail because of poor governance, it doesn't reflect well on the country. And for a country that is trying to entice inward investment, if the governance framework isn't up to snuff, as we say, then that could have a potentially negative effect. So good governance, it just makes sense. There's plenty of anecdotal evidence too that good governance enhances reputation. It also, for organisations, particularly commercial ones, reduces the cost of capital. It just makes sense.
That's it from us here at the JSC Core Competencies to Excel as a Corporate Secretary. I've been your host, Andrew Laidley, and thanks for tuning in to Business Access TV. Serious about business.
Your weekly dose of information on nutrition, wellness, and fitness. Discover ways to nurture your mind, body, and spirit.
My name is Herbert Chung, Executive Chairman, Co-Founder, Honeybun 1982 Limited. You're watching Business Access TV. Serious about business.
is not just any other Wednesday. Today pays special observance to a long-held Christian tradition, Ash Wednesday. As we begin a global celebration of a 40-day-long Lenten fast, we'll help you understand a little more about the day and days following. Hi, I'm Theodore Henry. So happy you joined us for this Jamaica magazine. Welcome. While we backtrack to learn about some of the history behind Ash Wednesday, we'll highlight some other noteworthy historical elements of our country. Do stay with us.
Living in Jamaica is an experience that you cannot put in words. There's an energy in the atmosphere that just feels good. There's so many aspects of Jamaica that I think makes it second to none. The best food, the best music, the best people. We can go on and on about the good things about living in Jamaica. There's a parish in Jamaica called Portland. I think that's one of my favorite places to be. It's one of the most nature-oriented parishes, and I love the nightlife in Kingston. Once you come here and you get that connection with the people, that connection with the food and the music and just the lifestyle is something that you'll always remember. People should visit Jamaica because I'm sure 100% that it is the place to be on planet Earth. You need to come here and you will get an experience that you will never forget.
It must be a good thing that you're still with us, right? I guess you haven't given us up for Lent. All right, seriously though, what is Lent actually about? Well, among other things, it's when many Christians partake in a Lenten sacrifice, that is, committing to fasting and giving up certain comforts of life for a set period of time. Of course, there's more to the tradition, so we'll let you find out about it in our next feature.
He was nailed to the cross for me. He was bruised and battered so that I might go free.
The persecution, the crucifixion, and the resurrection, all reminders of the celebration of Easter. Although edged in controversy over the true origin of the dates, the events of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ are embraced mostly by Catholics, Lutherans, Methodists, and Presbyterians. The tradition also continues with the Anglican, Eastern Orthodox, and some non-denominational churches. It all starts with a day called Ash Wednesday. Derived from the Latin phrase Dies Cinerum, it means Day of Ashes. Per Catholic custom, on this day, a cross is marked on the believer's forehead in ashes, symbolizing one's belief in Christ. This marks the physical and spiritual beginning of the Lenten season.
The importance of the practice of Lent in the early church was to prepare candidates for baptism. And part of this was done through an alignment with the life of Christ, his 40 days and 40 nights in the desert.
So his followers observe 40 days of repentance, starting Ash Wednesday and ending Holy Saturday, the day before Easter Sunday. The Sundays in this period are not counted among the 40 fasting days. Ash Wednesday is usually dedicated as a time of fasting and the recital of penitential psalms. Traditional customs include the stages of the cross, with the priest stopping at each of 14 images depicting stages of the condemnation, crucifixion, and resurrection of Christ. The Catholic Church is among those that wear special colors that are supposed to have biblical meaning, like red on Good Friday, signifying dying for Jesus through your faith in God.
A more common practice among other Christian churches is the partaking of the Holy Communion as well as a 21-day fast, which begins on Ash Wednesday.
While some people decide not to eat anything all day, others just have bread and water. Some Christians also abstain from all meat on Ash Wednesday and all Fridays in Lent. But the relevance of this and many of the customs of Easter is a matter of dispute. even among those of the Christian faith.
But if you look at the history, you would have discovered that it has a pagan concept. There's only one passage, that is in Acts chapter 12 and verse 4, and it mentions the word Easter. However, that is in the King James Version. If you look at other newer versions, you'll find Passover, because your original word and the context will show you it says Passover. So there's no biblical support for it.
Christian believers say the number 40 is a special number in the Bible that signifies preparation for something special. Like the 40 days of rain that covered the land in a flood in the time of Noah, Moses' sojourn on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, Jonah giving the people of Nineveh 40 days to repent.
We see how when Jonah eventually responded to God's entreaty to go to the Ninevites, and he preached to the Ninevites, immediately from the king all the way to a little child, they donned ashes and sackcloth and repented of their sins.
Then there was Jesus' 40 days in the desert in prayer and fasting before he began his ministry. This is said to have prepared Jesus for his work on earth, and it is believed that this practice purifies by weaning men from sin and selfishness.
This is essentially it, to be the body and the blood of Jesus Christ in the world. The aim, the objective of all that we do in our worship, in our prayer, in our self-sacrifice is to become another Christ. And when the church becomes truly this, the church makes a saving impact upon the world.
But that ideal is not the bone of contention. By much of its symbolism and its position on the calendar, Easter is linked to the Jewish Passover and Exodus from Egypt recorded in the Old Testament. But Christians base much of their beliefs and practices on the reports of Jesus' Last Supper. Yet that foundation is contested by sources like the ecclesiastical historian Socrates of Constantinople, also known as Socrates Scholasticus, and not to be confused with the Greek philosopher Socrates. Socrates Scholasticus attributes the observance of Easter simply to the church's attempts to perpetuate its customs, insisting that neither Jesus nor his apostles endorsed this or any other such festival.
But despite opposing views that there is neither biblical nor historical record of Jesus, the apostles, or the early church's participation in Lenten season, Christians are holding fast to the tradition and strongly believe it still has its significance today.
Still, they are not united on the date.
You'd have to go back from about, say, the 3rd century. It started the practice and was fully canonized with the Council of Nicaea. That is AD 325, the Constantine. And they sort of gave credence to it. By the time you got to the 8th century, it was already fully established. So coming down to us, they'd have lost whatever concept it had before, because there was no biblical support for it. But by the time it comes to us now, it's well entrenched. So everybody seems to answer and believe in what we call the Easter story.
Using the Gregorian calendar, Christian churches in the West celebrate Easter on the first Sunday following the full moon after the vernal equinox on March 21. Easter is therefore observed anywhere between March 22 and April 25 every year. The Eastern Orthodox and most Oriental Orthodox churches retained the Julian calendar, typically celebrating the holiday a week or two after the Western churches.
So the Czech Church's perspective on whether it's Lent or seeing Lent as the renewal of the life of human beings is placed within worship itself. And for us, that worship takes place on a daily basis.
We have no problem with that, because we accept the sacrifice of Jesus Christ and his atonement for us. What we don't believe in, it is the Easter celebration that takes place.
In Holy Scripture, there is this constant call, constant reminder that our lives are out of sync with God, with what God expects of us. And so we must constantly be in a state of renewal. Lent is a call to renewal.
Motorists, when driving on the road, here are some simple reminders. Look out for and extend courtesy to all road users. Give plenty of room to pedestrians, especially in wet weather. Drive slowly. No bother wet them up. Slow down when approaching a pedestrian crossing or school, and always be prepared to stop. Remember, a school zone is a 30-kilometer zone. Cut your speed. Drivers of large and slow-moving vehicles should always keep in the far left hand of a dual carriageway. Keep it simple. Drive left and pass right. These are just simple reminders of your road duties. Drive safely.
Today we're journeying to the old capital to share an old story with a new generation. We're building on our history with a very significant piece of the story from the Filippo Baptist Church.
It was our own national hero, the Right Excellent Sam Sharp, an enslaved man and a freedom fighter who said, "I would rather die upon yonder gallows than live in slavery." That sentiment was also shared by many other slaves. But the fight for freedom and the hope for victory brought liberation to many. Right here in Jamaica, the movement to end slavery was very active, and landmarks across the island document this part of our history.
We are on the Emancipation Trail, and we're looking at the symbolic parts of Jamaica which relate to emancipation, a very important change of status in our country. We're here in the Filippo Baptist Church compound in Spanish Town. Spanish Town is a very old city, founded in 1539, I believe, and this particular site was where the Baptists created a congregation in 1818. And this church, built by the Baptists at the time of Reverend Filippo, was part of the congregation that was very supportive of the move to emancipate all enslavement. And that is a magnificent building going back probably close to 200 years. This church is very historic. Right here, under this tamarind tree, and identified by this plaque, is the slave chains which were buried on August the 1st, 1838. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Deacon Ivan O'Connor, a member of this congregation, who is going to tell us some more about this very historic site and its relationship to emancipation.
I understand that part of the Declaration of Emancipation was read from the steps of this church. And a deep hole was dug right here, and all the chains that were available were put in there and covered. And a tamarind tree was put there as a monument. I understand that the first tamarind tree was destroyed by the 51 hurricane, but it was replaced. And it stands here now as a monument where people can come and get tamarind and remember the slavery chains.
And touch the monument as part of our experience
it is here
of
as a
what
reminder.
Emancipation was all about.
Right.
But I also think we have to remind ourselves that the original official declaration was read from the steps of King's House,
That's
the facade which is still in front of the square.
That square is Emancipation Square, which is also in Spanish Town and just a few meters away from the Filippo Baptist Church. Here was once the town center. Other important buildings in the square include the Old House of Assembly, Rodney's Memorial, and the Old Courthouse. The area was severely damaged by fire as well as the 1692 earthquake, but parts of the buildings have since been restored and put to use. Back over at the Filippo Baptist Church,
we want to reaffirm how important the Baptist movement and denomination was to emancipation. They were major players in persuading the English government to declare free at last, emancipation on the 1st of August, 1838.
And it is believed that the chains of slaves were buried at the Philippa Baptist Church due to its close proximity to Emancipation Square and the unrelenting movement by the Baptist Church to put an end to slavery.
Somebody said some time ago, how can we write the history of Jamaica without including the Baptists? The Baptists were one of the churches that were very integral to the teaching of the slaves and emancipation. James Philippo was one of the persons who was integral in getting emancipation for the slaves in Jamaica.
While emancipation was declared for slaves, their conditions were not improved. So the movement for a more just society was challenged by Paul Bogle and George William Gordon. They were also part of the Baptist movement and later became two of our national heroes. As a result of this involvement, Baptist work in Jamaica became an enduring symbol of the church's opposition to slavery and all other forms of injustice.
This building was put up sometime about 1827 thereabout and has been maintained over time. It's a natural heritage site, and so the National Heritage Trust has control over what happens here. Right after emancipation, James Philippo established free villages like in Sligoville, in parts of Clarendon, and also established churches. So this church is steeped in our history in Jamaica.
So many wish they could visit our shores. We live where they vacation. Brand Jamaica beckons all from the four corners of the earth.
Well, as a Jamaican, I have great pride in selling it. You know, your pride that you sell Jamaica with is something that it rolls off. Jamaica has so much to offer, and every
We've seasoned these global observances to create our own intricate blend of things, while of course still remaining true to the original observances.
Easter, a holiday for some to relax on the beach with family and friends or just hang out at their favorite spots. But for Christians, the day, also known as Resurrection Sunday, takes on a deeper meaning. It marks the day when Jesus Christ rose from the dead. This, of course, followed the crucifixion of Jesus Christ 3 days before, which is called Good Friday.
He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told while he was still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again.
Easter Sunday is the culmination of the Passion of Jesus, preceded by Lent, a 40-day period of fasting, prayer, and penance. At the heart of the matter is God's love for humanity. Over the years, a mixture of traditions and practices have been perpetuated, like placing egg white in a container of water on Holy Thursday night so that by Good Friday you will see your future. This is determined by the pattern which is formed by the coagulating egg white. Then there is the eating of bun and cheese. This custom dates back to Britain with the eating of hot cross buns on Good Friday. It's a small, round, slightly sweet bun made with a cross cut on the top, which is understood as a symbol of the crucifixion, thus the name hot cross bun, which was only sold during specific times such as Good Friday. The British brought this custom when they settled in Jamaica. Though the practice has diminished in Britain, it is still prevalent here in Jamaica. Of course, we've added our spices to the bun mixture and a faithful partner, cheese. Bun and cheese is mainly eaten during the Easter holiday. There is also the practice of some Jamaicans to cut the physic nut or bleeding tree around midday on Good Friday. It is believed that the sap will seep a red substance that signifies the blood of Jesus. It's also believed that the crucifixion was carried out on a similar type of tree. Numerous churches are decorated with the Easter lily during the holiday. It's a plant which seems to appropriately bloom on Easter Sunday. The Easter lily symbolizes purity, innocence, and virtue due to its snow-white color and white trumpet. Another custom is the exclusion of meat for the Lenten period. That's 40 days after Ash Wednesday, with fish being the main staple on many tables.
On our roads, remember, take time, be courteous, drive good, walk good. Part of keeping our roads safe is ensuring the vehicles we drive are mechanically safe, meeting all roadworthy requirements. And besides that, we must be good drivers and avoid risk-taking and sensation-seeking behaviors which are prone to causing road crashes.
So let's pause on the history lessons for a bit and press play on today, or more like just a month ago. Let's now recap on some of the work coming out of the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology's ECPA Roundtable session.
The future of motor vehicles is electric. The government of Jamaica is taking steps to prepare the country and Jamaicans to take advantage of the opportunities of transitioning from gas power to electric motor vehicles. The Minister of Science, Energy and Technology, MSET, hosted a roundtable discussion on the subject at the Montego Bay Convention Center in St. James on January 24.
We're having this event to raise awareness about e-mobility and to signal to the people of Jamaica that this is a significant priority. Jamaica is redefining the energy landscape to allow us to scale up actions to achieve energy security, energy efficiency, energy resilience, and greater energy investments in the country.
The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, is supporting Jamaica in developing the policy framework for transitioning to electric mobility.
We're bringing $1.5 million in grant. We're helping with the strategic framework. We're helping with feasibility studies. We're helping with looking at innovative ways of financing. And together we can be part of that climate change solution.
The roundtable discussion was held ahead of the 4th Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas ECPA ministerial meeting, scheduled to take place in Montego Bay at the Montego Bay Convention Center, February 27 to 28, 2020.
You know how they say it's so nice that you have to do it twice? Well, the ECPA Roundtable was that good. We had to give you just a bit more.
The recently concluded high-level roundtable discussion on electric mobility, convened by the Minister of Science, Energy and Technology at the Montego Bay Convention Center on Friday, January 24, provided an excellent opportunity for the key stakeholders and partners from the energy and transport sectors, as well as development partners and members of the business community to outline their plans, concerns, and recommendations towards the ministry's thrust towards electric mobility. The dialogue was robust and interactive.
First of all, I would just like to thank the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology for having a forum such as this, because it is very important and it is a part of ensuring the communication and dialogue on electric mobility continues.
What exactly is going to be the larger scale plan in terms of public transportation? Is it going to be a reliance on smaller vehicles, or is it going to be larger buses?
JUTC has fuel and maintenance as one of their major expenditures. We are actually very anxious to do a pilot testing.
From our perspective, going
electric going E is the way to go. There is no resistance on our part. The new car dealers have to put in the correct tooling, get the correct training. We need to make sure that everybody is on board.
I just want to say by the questions being asked, I can tell that there is a lot of interest in this, and that's why we took the step as government to, along with our development partner IDB, to develop a strategic framework for this sector. We will make that available to the public in due course in a matter of weeks.
This roundtable discussion on electric mobility is just one in a series of dialogues that the ministry intends to hold with policymakers, the private sector and the public, as plans progress to accelerate the uptake of renewable energy and advance Jamaica's energy transformation. The roundtable is a precursor to the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas ECPA ministerial meeting, where Jamaica will host energy ministers from some 30 countries, as well as development partners and private sector stakeholders in the regional space, at the Montego Bay Convention Center, February 27 to 28, 2020.
If you subscribe to Christianity, Lent is a time of spiritual self-discovery, renewal, and an invitation to find God's will for us, a way of finding a purer form of ourselves through sacrifice and prayer. So in keeping with the hope of a successful Lent, even if you are not a Christian believer, here are some things that you may consider not doing. Number 1, don't use Lent as a weight loss regimen. Abstaining from food that we love can be a good way to discipline our bodies, but selfishly looking for an outcome from that can take away from the intended purpose of the sacrifice. Number 2, don't focus solely on yourself. Lent is really a time to improve our relationship with God, and an important part of applying this objective is to bring the love of God to others, whether through our actions or our words. Number 3, don't make your Lenten practices something temporary. How about we use practices adopted during Lent to make lasting progress in our lives? Let's not just hold our breath until Lent is over, only to go back to being the same person we were before it all began. And number 4, don't hold up impossible standards. We could be positioning ourselves for failure by setting up too many stringent aspirations. Sometimes it's better to achieve a limited number of things well than to aspire for an impractical number of goals all at once. And speaking of goals, that's why we have Vision 2030, realistic goals, charting a realistic path, one that helps to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Your 30 minutes with us is ending in a few seconds, but we have 39 more days to go for the Lenten season. Thanks so much for inviting us into your homes. Now here's a chance to watch some of our other shows on our YouTube channel and by visiting the JIS website at www.jis.gov.jm or our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. On behalf of the entire production team here at the JIS, I'm Theodore Henry. Happy Ash Wednesday, or what's left of it anyway. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.
Sundays at 4:30 p.m. It's all about Home Sweet Home. Get your half-hour dose of the business of real estate, from laws and concepts to reality, building, buying, or renting. Or what about trends in decor or renovations? Home Sweet Home will keep you up to date.
You're watching Business Access TV. Business Access TV.
Business Access.
Business Access TV.
Serious.
Serious.
Serious about business.
Business Access TV comes to you from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica Business Seminar under the theme Achieving Growth, Sustaining Viability. I am Tamar McHale with part 2 of the highlights, starting with a presentation on global turmoil and its implications to Jamaica.
So I'm sure we've all seen in the news what's been going on, the fears of the trade war, global crisis, the world is coming to an end. Trump basically controlling everything. Those fears have been widespread and right across the globe. The constant trade war between the US and China, even the Chinese, their headlines, you all see it, are also very concerned about this. Brexit, another huge issue that has been in the news, another huge issue that is affecting global trade and affecting the economies of the world. Trump looking closer at the trade war between US and China. Trump has accused China of unfair trading practices and intellectual property theft. The Chinese believe that the US want to undermine their country's rise, and this has basically led to an economic fallout which has vexed the global markets. Over the past year, the US has imposed over $360 billion worth of tariffs on the Chinese government. The Chinese has retaliated with $110 billion worth of tariffs on US products. Washington has delivered 3 rounds of tariffs this year, and the 4th one was in September of this year. The last round was on meat and musical instruments, and they put a 15% duty on Chinese meat and musical instruments coming into the US. Beijing has hit back with 5% to 25% tariffs on US goods. The last tariff was a 5% levy on US crude oil, the first time fuel has ever been hit in this trade battle, which is a huge, huge thing. And we're feeling it in the oil prices. The oil prices have come off considerably since this tariff has been in. Both sides are basically threatening to take action against one another. Washington has further threatened another set of tariffs for December of this year. China has also planned to hit back with tariffs on 3,000 more products for the US by the end of this year. If nothing is interrupted, this process will reverse 40 years of increased trade and financial and economic integration between China and the US. Other nation companies won't follow the Americans and lead, and they are benefiting from this. So if you look at this, China has felt the pinch with $35 billion of export losses to the US since the beginning of this year, and other countries are benefiting. So Taiwan has been the biggest beneficiary of this. $4.2 billion in the first half of 2019. Trade between the US and Taiwan has grown. Mexico has grown by an additional $3.5 billion of trade between Mexico and the US. EU, Vietnam, other big benefiters of what's happening in the trade war between the US and China. Korea, Canada have also benefited, ranging between $0.9 and $1.5 billion of trade. The US companies have also benefited. They have picked up the slack, and they have also, rather than exporting jobs to China and importing goods from China, they have kept $14 billion worth of exports and goods produced in the US by producing it in the US rather than in China. So we're seeing that net there, what Trump is doing is benefiting the US, is hurting China, and the rest of the world is benefiting. This is where Jamaica, the opportunity for Jamaica here comes in. The problem is that we've killed our manufacturing sector, and we can't pick up the slack like a Taiwan or a Mexico or the EU right off the bat. But there's a huge opportunity here for us to get in the middle of this China-US trade war and benefit. You know, these are the huge headwinds that are ahead of us in terms of trade and how this will affect us in the region as well as the rest of the world. So, you know, these issues are not new. They have been around for 2 years. So why all of a sudden are people saying that we're near recession? Well, on March 22nd of this year, the US Treasury curve inverted. What does that mean? That means that long-term rates in the US fell below the short-term rates in the US. It meant that persons were beginning to worry. It meant that those persons that were in stocks and other long-term assets began to sell those assets and went to the safety of treasuries. Once you move to treasuries, the yields fall, the yield curve inverts. What does that mean for recession? Well, since 1975, every recession in the US has been preceded by an inversion of the yield curve. So since 1975, and you'll see it from the chart, so the global financial crisis was preceded by the yield curve inverting. The dot-com bust in early 2000, again, the same with the oil price shock in the 90s, was all preceded by an inversion of the yield curve. And this happened on March 22nd of this year. Typically, the recession usually follows an inversion by 6 to 2 years. So it's not an immediate thing. So this is what has been causing a lot of panic. 6 months to 2 years. Right. So this is what happened in the US and has been causing a lot of panic. Whether it's self-fulfilling or not, you know, it is a cause for concern given our reliance on the US and our reliance globally on trade. So again, coming out of the inversion of the yield curve and coming out of the trade wars, IMF reduced its target for GDP growth from 3.5% to 3.3% for this year on a global basis. You'll see in 2009 where we had the recession. This is a big thing because this is the lowest level of growth that's predicted by the IMF since the 2009 crash. Again, this shows the global distribution of GDP across the globe. The US and China contribute 40% of GDP to the globe. If US and China continue this trade war and production starts to fall in these two territories, you're looking at our global issues throughout the globe. If you add in the rest of Asia and you add in what's happening in Europe and the EU into that, you're looking at a 75% drop, a 75% GDP contribution. Those countries a fall in their production in the coming months. So how does that affect us here in Jamaica? Well, we need to look back at what happened at 2008 and when we had the big financial crisis of 2008 and the last time that Jamaica was in recession. You'll see that was a major financial crisis. So the global markets had financial headwinds. There was cheap credit and loose lending terms internationally. Subprime mortgages was the thing of the day. There we had a huge credit crunch. The US economy slowed. That spread right across the globe, and world economy prices were plummeting. So the Fed, in response to that, they dropped rates, had the longest period of expansionary policies throughout the US with interest rates at the lowest they've been for the longest period in US history. Stock market had its worst performance during that period and has recovered considerably since. For Jamaica, back then, we were in a much worse position. So we had an exchange rate that was galloping. I mean, somebody might argue that it's galloping today. I hear we're selling at 143.20 today. Yeah, it's crazy, sorry. But we had a spiraling fiscal deficit, we had unsustained debt levels, rising interest rates, Bond prices were under pressure with negative economic growth, and our rating was under huge pressure. Since then, Jamaica has really turned around following two successful public debt exchanges, JDX and NDX. Our interest costs are rock bottom now. Our maturity profile on government debt has been extended. We've had two successful IMF programs. Government of Jamaica is very proactive in their liability management, improved economic stability, 18 consecutive quarters of growth, albeit very low, and an upgrade in the country's credit rating. Our financial entities are much better regulated. Consumer spending is much more moderate. Real estate prices have been stable, and financial entities are much better capitalized.
Stay with us. We hear more from Mr. Johan Heaven when we return.
Dodgen Global offers a CPA scholarship program to team members who join our team. A career in accountancy at Dodgen Global is a great choice and can offer you excellent job prospects. We believe that an accounting education is the greatest gift you can give yourself or anyone else. Few gifts make as significant an impact as the gift of an accountancy education with a job. It's a contribution that lasts a lifetime in the form of learning, opportunity, and success. Join our team and get the opportunity to be part of our CPA scholarship program. This scholarships awards program will be administered by the HR department of Dodgen Global. Requirements: first degree in accounting, employed at Dodgen Global, willing to pursue the CPA examination. Here's how to apply. Submit application to Staff Accountant, Dodgen Global. Email sa@dodgen.com.
So what will a slowdown in the world economy look like for Jamaica? We're going to take it on a industry by industry basis. So in terms of tourism, tourism is now 9% of our GDP, still a considerable portion of our GDP. Global slowdown obviously will affect our tourist arrivals and affect our GDP growth. It's critical that we need to diversify our tourism product. We need to tap into other markets. We need to not depend only on the US market. And I see, the minister is doing that. Tourist board is doing that. We're doing a good job, but we still need to tap into other markets. We need to be in China, which is the largest economy in the world. We need to have Chinese come in here. Chinese don't like sand and sea. They like the cultural experience. They're here. Yeah, we need more though. We need, yeah. Remittances, again, a huge contributor to GDP, 16.5% remittances. If there's a slowdown in the US, we're going to see lower levels of remittances coming into Jamaica. Bauxite, we know, is already under pressure. Alpart and Gisco plant have closed. Again, if commodity prices fall, we will see a further fall off in bauxite. Foreign direct investment as well, we've been doing very well. Again, we will see lower levels of FDI and lower levels of foreign exchange coming into the country. This will put further pressure on the foreign exchange rate. Our NIR, however, has been very stable and at the highest level it has been forever. The governor does not like to use the NIR to stabilize the dollar though, but if there is significant pressure on the dollar, he will have to use the NIR to stabilize the dollar and to bring the US into the market. Unemployment at its lowest level, near 6%. BPO sector growing, manufacturing sector growing, but if tourism and other sectors come under pressure, we could see unemployment coming under pressure. And then this is really the most concerning thing for me. It is our local asset prices, and because interest rates are at all-time lows, many of the fund managers have been finding it difficult to find assets to invest in. So you see a lot of the money moving towards real estate, money moving towards the stock market, money moving to other fixed income instruments, and I believe that a lot of those assets are overpriced right now, given the relatively low level of interest rates. Yesterday, the BOJ CD came in at 0.99%, below 1%, below where the US Treasury raises funds at. So our local government is raising money cheaper than the US government. That's because our local institutions don't have anything to do with the funds, and so they're running after assets that are coming out. Again, the stock market, which has doing very well, 2 years we've been the best performing stock market. We have to be very careful with the asset prices and how far they're going, because right now, the levels that they're trading at, in the high 20s, when you look at the price to earnings ratio, my opinion, it's high, and we have to be very careful with where we are right now. Real estate is the new thing. A lot of developments going on, which is great, but we have to be careful of the real estate prices and where they're going. We don't want to end up in a case where we have a stock market bubble or a real estate bubble, and then when the bubble bursts, we all know what happens.
Coming after Johan, the topic is very timely, disasters. And I'm happy to be sharing the panel with Bruce, because the truth is that, thank you, the truth is that business continuity, not just for business, but for government, is key. And that business continuity speaks to recovery planning, which is absolutely important as we try to grapple with these issues. We are reminded often, right here in Jamaica, throughout the Caribbean, close to us, the greatest difficulty is getting back up and running. And the way to minimize that challenge is to begin that planning long before an event occurs. We've been trying very much with the government of Jamaica. Regrettably, we have not made the kind of progress we would have liked, because we saw what happened after Hurricane Ivan, and we see it each time. You shoot from the hip, you set up an organization, try to get it going. So business continuity applies just to business, but very importantly to the national construct. We're living with a new normal. Every day we hear about disasters all around the world. There are climate-triggered disasters, there are geophysical disasters, and there are human-induced disasters. Multi-hazard disasters coming out of one of the UN global frameworks, what we call the Sendai framework, they're tracking these disasters. And over the last 10 years, well, maybe 1997 to 2017, floods accounted for the greatest impact, and the disasters stemming from natural hazards caused the greatest disruption in terms of displacement of people and so on. So we're talking about a lot of people. What do we have in the Caribbean? We have a situation where, just coming very close, 2 years ago, we had 2 Category 5 hurricanes coming within 2 weeks of each other, devastating our sister territories, many of which are still crawling to try to get back up and running. We had Dorian, which stalled over the Bahamas for several days. We have just never seen that. So not only was it intense, but it sat there. And the implications are very much there. So we ask ourselves, are these processes natural? And we have global systems that underlie natural processes. This is the reality. And very often, however, the response is influenced by the human factor. Natural systems, of course, include where we are. So we are imbued, we're located in the tropical Caribbean. That tells us some things. plate tectonics in terms of our geology, our geophysical construct that makes us prone to earthquakes, the movement of these plates. We have atmospheric oceanic circulation, and then global warming and climate change, which is the central consideration. If you think Brexit is bad, and you think US-China trade war is bad, climate change is underpinning everything. So the impact of the climate, this climate reality, is very far-reaching. We don't have time to go into all of it. However, we heard about our tourism, our dependence, agriculture, manufacturing, housing, settlements, health, everything with which we are concerned in terms of how we make a living, how we generate our businesses, and there is no one in this room who is immune from the impact. And therefore, what we have to focus on, which is what is being pushed globally, is climate action. How do we build resilience? So, the second thing that we have to focus on is disaster risk reduction, which means that we have to understand the science of the hazard. We have to assess our exposure. Nobody's going to be expected to understand how the hazards are generated, but somebody has to do it. So everything has to be underpinned by the science. How exposed are we? And then what are our vulnerabilities? How is it likely to impact? Are the vulnerabilities internal to our companies, to our communities, to our homes, or are they external? For example, we had a very serious case of flooding. Some of you might remember it. It's a few years ago. Major rainfall event, wasn't a hurricane or anything, the Marcus Garvey flooding that wiped out coffee board, wiped out a lot of that coffee. That was a vulnerability that living next to the gully, which was not properly cleared, and also because we had construction that blocked some of the natural drainage. Those are external vulnerabilities that affect and have a major impact. And regrettably, again, we don't often measure the full cost of this impact, which is where our accounting profession and financial professionals come in. We need to manage, as we said before, during and after the event, because we have to prepare ourselves not only to see what's coming down the pike, but very importantly, to be able to get back up and running. Disasters are therefore considered failed development. And when we're dealing with natural disasters, as the term is used, disasters that are caused by natural events, it usually is a reflection of what we have failed to do in terms of our infrastructure, what we have failed to do in terms of our planning, and what we have failed to do in terms of ensuring that we minimize loss.
Don't go anywhere. More from the ICAJ Business Seminar when we return.
My name is Levon Flynn, and you're watching Business Access TV. Serious about business.
So we do not have generally integrated planning. We have informal, unstructured development, sometimes implicitly encouraged. And then we have structured developments. I think many of us are investors. We go for short-term financial interest, financial gain, without looking at the long term. However, we cannot really continue to do that because we pay a price. And sometimes the price may not be in our lifetime. You know, we take the case of Caribbean Terrace, which is one that is used all the time. 1994, Ivan wiped away that. Those houses should never have been built there, okay? but they were built. Persons who purchased them didn't have a clue, and you pay that price. We talked about the interconnectivity in terms of globalization and so on, and the fact that there is a cascading effect. So we moved out to this planet, this environment, since that's the third element. Very often we view this environment in terms of just getting a permit for development. So we have to do environmental assessments. We have adversarial positioning. There's always quarreling. However, it's a multifaceted and complex topic, but importantly, it's a development issue, it's a business issue, and it is closely intertwined with economics, with finance, with strategy and people. It's not solely an issue of protecting natural resources. It's not just about trees, hugging trees at all. It goes way beyond that. So we know we have natural systems. Very importantly, we have built systems. And we tend to spend less time, less focus on how those built systems are integrated with the natural. It's the environment, the planet, it's our life support system. You can't live without clean air, you can't live without water. And there are resources, there are economic assets, that's what we build on. And again, one of the things we pay less attention to, and increasingly we have to, is health. That chikungunya outbreak, the dengue, the mosquito breeding, all of that related to warming temperatures, climate change, and it is going to get worse.
My focus will be on the man-made disasters affecting businesses that are unique to businesses. So I've subtitled my presentation, Preparing and Recovering from Unique Disaster Situations. And when I use the word disaster in this context, I mean just about anything that could bring your business to a grinding halt. I had a session with one of my clients, I think earlier this week, pray for me, and one of the things, the thing that we were trying to do, we were trying to identify those events that, and we use this word, that could cripple the organization. Historically, when we think of a disrupting event to a business, our minds tend to think about the fire in the computer room or some physical thing that's disrupting our operations. And obviously, that is part of the discussion. And by the way, many businesses still struggle to recover from those unique physical disruptions. And our moderator spoke to that earlier. So when I was thinking about the presentation, I thought to myself that I'd try and give a broader methodology around how to identify these unique disrupting events with a view of making sure that if they happen, you can still continue your business. I've pretty much spoken about this in my opening remarks. Yes, natural disasters, they're everywhere, they affect our region. And this is just to repeat my opening comments. We will have less empathy. Your stakeholders will be less understanding if you are an event that is unique to you while all your stakeholders are up and running. Ironically though, if there was, say, a hurricane, and because of poor disaster preparation, you took longer to restore your business than the competitors, then you're going to find yourself in a unique situation. And so this speaks to the importance of disaster preparation. I'm not really focusing on that. So let's look at some common, unique disasters affecting some of the key business processes that we have. So the real value to me of this presentation, and what I want you to take away, is how to find these non-traditional type things. You know, I cannot keep repeating that we tend to think of the fire and the electrical failure and stuff like that. Technology failures. British Airways had an embarrassing situation. Didn't actually cripple them from an operational perspective, but it created significant adverse impact on their reputation. They had a power surge that brought down their check-in system and their baggage claim system. The average passenger wasn't able to get a flight until 3 days later. $122 million in hard costs, and the reputational damage was immense. Didn't cripple them in that sense, but certainly went beyond the realm of their risk appetite, I'm sure. Cyber attacks, we don't need to talk about that one too much. Equifax had an issue that's well documented. And here's another one of those unique things that I'm talking about that we would do well. I'm going to end the presentation by showing you a quick methodology as to how to find these non-traditional type things. Segregation of duties. Would you have thought that not properly segregating duties in your company could literally cause the company to die? You've thought about it, right? So Barings Bank, one of the reasons why Barings Bank, Nick Leeson, this is well documented. He was a trader, and he had access apparently to trading and settling and doing stuff that was incompatible for one person to do. And so the obvious question is, what are the segregation of duties issues, believe it or not, that could be fatal to your organization? Key third parties. The world is so interconnected today that we are heavily dependent on major third parties to deliver significant aspects of our businesses. So much so that there's a separate standard to dealing with giving assurance for how third parties are managing your business. Does the third parties that you work with, do you know if they have a business continuity plan? Could they export a disaster to your business? And the list could go on. Compliance issues. If you're regulated and you don't have certain types of persons on staff who have the required approvals or certifications from the regulator, they could shut you down. The first thing is basically to do risk assessment. And really what that is to try and identify what these things are. In PwC, we have a standard list of known threats with some leading questions. And it might seem kind of banal, but let me give you a quick example of what I'm talking about here. So this is a very simple questionnaire surrounding electrical power risk, right? So I'm talking about doing a risk assessment. So you have electrical, water, fire. Who is your neighbor? The business next door to you. We had a client where there was a big cylinder that was right next door to the boardroom because their neighbor was a restaurant that emerged overnight. Think of your impact financially. How much would you lose? Operationally, would they shut us down? Or reputation, would it be at stake? Could this cause an environmental issue? So what are the risks? There are some standard risks that have to do with your buildings. But the real value comes when you have, say, all your executives in a room and you look at all your key objectives and you ask each other or challenge each other to answer the question, if we were not able to get all of our tellers certified or investment managers certified, what would be the impact? So you basically do an impact likelihood assessment of all your risks that you have identified. And at the end of it, you should come up with something like this, which is known as a heat map. So having done the identification of the risks, you ask yourself on a scale of, say, 1 to 4, if this risk were to happen, what would be the impact? And then, what would be the likelihood of this risk happening to us? So in this case, if we had an air quality issue, the impact on a scale of 1 to 4 is 4. This is only for illustrative purposes. And in this entity, they say it is very likely that we would have it. And so this risk ends up in the top right-hand corner. If you want to have your viable businesses and to achieve growth, which is the broader theme of this conference, every company represented in this room, you should ensure that you have a heat map like this, and any risk that's in the top right-hand corner, you need to take some action. So if you realize that you don't have a backup site to your primary computer room, and you ask your IT persons and they tell you it's $1 million to put it in, and those are expensive treatments, it's better to spend the $1 million and save the business and your reputation, all right?
When we return, we hear from Anna K. Jones's presentation on human disaster versus natural disaster, a youth's perspective.
This is Solomon Sharp, CEO Main Event Entertainment Group. You are watching Business Access TV, serious about business.
was asked to give the youth perspective, as the moderator said. So what qualifies me to do such? First of all, I am a youth. Yes. And I am passionate about the environment. As she said, that is why I decided to pursue a minor in energy and environmental physics. We want to be able to develop technologies that will help sustain our future. So this is the first question that some people still have an issue with. Is climate change real? And I would answer with a very deflated, yes, yes it is. It's very exhausting to think that this is something that we still have to be wondering about and explaining to people that people don't understand. Because climate change happens without us. You know, the Earth has been through ice ages and so forth. It happens without us. Slightly more intelligent question would be, does human activity impact climate change? And the answer is again, yes it does. One of the first companies to do a comprehensive climate study was actually an oil company. And this was in like the 80s. And they found amongst themselves that yes, what we're doing is impacting the climate. And they didn't do anything about it. They didn't tell anyone. And now we have super hurricanes. So that's fun. So silly questions out of the way. Is it really that serious? Well, you tell me. Of course, we have hurricanes and droughts and wildfires. Those are things that happen with our environment. And then when we have those hurricanes and droughts and wildfires and other disasters, we have the loss of life, we have the displacement, we have the destruction of land, infrastructure, or food supply goes down, so we come down here. And then, of course, we have the human side of it, the burning of the Amazon rainforest that happened this year. Those were man-made and intentional for cattle breeding purposes. Constant fossil fuel burning, soil erosion due to improper farming practices. And then come here again, and you see a lot of the times these things, these human impacts, are sort of excused because of these issues that we're having. But then we come back here and we say that, but wait, these things that we're doing impact up here. They increase the intensity of these natural disasters. Imagine during Hurricane Dorian or after Hurricane Dorian, a lot of persons were not able to enter the US. I can't say for sure why that is, but we see a lot of issues like that. Amazon rainforest, persons were also using it as an excuse to damage indigenous people living in the forest. Native Americans in the US often have to deal with oil pipelines being run through their reservations, and then oil spills that spill into their water supply. And classism. It's very punishing to be poor, because you're just trying to live paycheck to paycheck, and somebody's there saying, just buy one less latte a day. You are being blamed. The lower class is often blamed for impacting the environment with their practices. So, for example, who has ever had somebody say, you know, just don't eat meat? It's because you're eating meat why the cattle farming and the methane from the cows and all those things, and it suddenly becomes your fault when you're just trying to live your life. And this is something else. So this is one that I've thought of very recently. For a lot of us, the plastic straw ban was very inconvenient, but mildly so. You know, you have to drink, you drink faster, or you don't use a straw, or maybe you get a trendy metal straw. We don't think about persons, for example, with neurological challenges who cannot manipulate those metal straws and plastic straws, the paper straws and bamboo straws. The plastic straws were very convenient for them. A new one that I saw, who in here has asthma? I don't mean to expose anybody's business, but if anybody in here has asthma, they're looking at you now, because they're saying that your asthma pumps are releasing methane, and so that is impacting the climate. And you're just trying to breathe. Why are they coming for you? You're just trying to breathe. And so all these things come together, and it is that serious. You have these discrimination against these marginalized people who are just trying to exist. So what is really going on here? This is a strong word. I don't hope nobody feels offended by it since a business conference, but really and truly, you have corporations, especially particularly these massive corporations that really don't care about who they hurt, who they impact, what oil spills where. Their only concern is that the oil is spilled and they cannot sell it. So then, the government, a lot of global governments allow for these type of these pollutions to be occurring because they're getting, a little money on the side. So they turn a blind eye and they don't say anything. And also, you have a lot of these corporations and the government putting the bulk of the responsibility on the citizens. When really and truly, they're not the majority. You're fixing a symptom of a problem and you're not going to the root and you're just ignoring the root completely. Citizens, global citizens, residential pollution only accounts for about 12%, where everything else is, company-based, corporation-based. We are inheriting a planet that will not be able to sustain. I wanted to highlight some of the key youth players here. If anybody follows American politics, this is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's daughter. She is very strong in the climate protests in the US. I wanted to highlight John Paul Hussein, particularly from India, because this week India had to announce a public health emergency because their air quality, pollution was literally, and I do mean literally, off the charts. Their meters capped out, could not record any higher. It was 20 times what is considered a safe amount of pollution. 20 times that. So yeah. And Greta Thunberg is very famous. She's kind of the face of this whole Fridays for Future protest. She's pretty much one of the founders for it. She has Asperger's, which is a disorder on the autism spectrum. She's a brilliant young woman, and she practices what she preaches. Trust me, reusable packages. She takes the boats instead of the planes. She takes trains instead of cars. She practices what she preaches. She means it. So what can be done? What do we expect as youth from you? We're looking for our governments to step up. We want to change the mindset. We don't want the apathy. We want people to see that this is a serious problem. It's not just 30 years down the line or 40 years down the line when, some of the older folks will be dead. And we're just gonna have to deal with it. We're just gonna have to deal with it. It's gonna be too late by then. People need to understand that now. And then we need to shift the focus from the everyday citizen. Of course, I don't want anybody to say that I'm saying that the citizens are not at fault at all. I'm hoping nobody in here is a litterer. Nobody's throwing the garbage out the car into the gully or anywhere else. But really and truly, we are not the main source. We're persons living our daily lives while big companies are getting away with murder. Literally, almost. Then we need to continue making our laws. It is hard, change is hard. However, it is necessary. We have to protect our natural resources, and we want to be able to move towards renewable energy. We want to be able to make that shift so that is one less thing to be worrying about. And then, of course, it doesn't make sense to have the laws if you don't enforce them. We want to have our government enforce the laws for the small citizens as well as for the big companies. And then, of course, we have to do our disaster planning because we cannot afford to let a hurricane, Category 5 hurricane, even brush us in Jamaica. The Bahamas, the Bahamas had internet throughout all of that. If we even got the tailwind, Or internet would have been knocked out. JPS would have shut down.
This is Solomon Sharp, CEO, Main Event Entertainment Group. You're watching Business Access TV, serious about business.
Thanks for staying with us for part 2 of Business Access TV's coverage of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica Business Seminar. We now turn over to the presentations of the challenges with meeting accounting standards and regulatory requirements.
All right, so I've been asked to speak about financial reporting challenges that are associated with entities being on exchanges, particularly Jamaica Stock Exchange. So the JSE has been getting a lot of attention in recent times based on the organization, the performance of our stock market, and also the fact that from a financial reporting perspective, I think the listed entities have kept a clean sheet. And we have been able to avoid many of the financial reporting scandals that we see emerging globally. But being on an exchange takes you into what I call the public accountability space. And you are inviting others to invest in your entity, others who are dependent on the performance of your entity to maintain and create value. So oftentimes when you have these IPOs, and an IPO can be either debt or equity, you find that you have individuals who are investing, persons who have foregone lattes to buy stocks. Sorry, Johan. Johan and I are very good friends, by the way. You have pension funds who are investing in these IPOs, and I audit some pension funds, and I find pension funds have heavy stakes in a lot of these IPOs, and each of us knows the importance of pension funds to long-term savings and just to the general run of the economy. So you're in public accountability space. Your responsibility, your stakeholder group has expanded tremendously. You have debt holders, equity holders, you have regulators who are meant to ensure that you operate in a manner that's consistent with best practice. You have the analysts who are tearing apart your performance and your results. And you also now have the attention of the global markets. People are watching the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So there is a picture of the Jamaica flag hanging outside I think it's the New York Stock Exchange, and it has gotten great publicity. There is an interview of Marlene Street Forest in the American media. So we are on the map. Once you get into that public accountability space, however, there are certain obligations that attend to you. And the main ones really are ensuring that you have a talent pool that allows you to understand, interpret, and apply all the financial reporting standards. These standards are extremely complex as the International Accounting Standards Board tries to fine-tune the accounting standards. You find that these standards are changing as the IASB and the FASB, which does the US GAAP promulgation, as they try to harmonize. You find that you have changes that are coming consistently, and these changes are complex. So in terms of your talent pool, you have to ensure that you have individuals who have the time, the agility, the intellectual capital, the access to technology that allows them to interact with these standards. And oftentimes what you find is that these are the same individuals who are doing the day-to-day transaction processing and financial reporting. So one of the challenges that entities will face, and a big one now, is with the insurance accounting standard, is trying to come to terms with the new standards while continuing to meet existing shareholder and stakeholder financial reporting requirements. And that's a huge challenge. But we have to appreciate that we are a proud nation. We like to see ourselves on the international stage. We like to compare ourselves to the larger, more profitable, more developed nations. And if we are to do that, then our financial reporting has to be consistent with theirs. We have to be able to compare our results with their results in a manner that allows for real analyses, comparison, and differentiation. And we have many entities in Jamaica as well that have huge ambitions, and there are entities that have publicly explored the option of listing on exchanges globally. And if we are to do that, then we have to have the appropriate financial reporting mechanisms.
My presentation here today is really not to go into the rules or anything like that. I don't want to bore you, but I want to speak from a practical standpoint, because I do get the calls from listed companies in terms of, saying that every day there is a new rule being developed. The stock exchange is moving like they're a New York Stock Exchange, right? We can't manage this. So I'm here to speak to you in terms of the challenges that listed companies have shared with the stock exchange in terms of, what their experience has been, right? And we do listen to these concerns and look at ways to address them if we can, right? So before going into the challenges, I want to just give you a breakdown of the regulatory environment for listed companies. And I should have asked, you guys know what ongoing requirements is speaking to, right? All right, let me just explain quickly. So as Garfield stated here, you have the first stage where the companies come to market, and they come to market usually through a prospectus offering. Now that's what you call your initial listing requirements, or satisfying initial listing requirements. When you're now on the stock exchange, you would be required to maintain that listing that you got to comply with the rules and standards of the market. So that is what we call ongoing requirements, right? And that is where you find that most of the challenges exist. So the regulatory environment, of course, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, as a listed company, you have to report to the stock exchange. But how many persons know that as an issuer, you also have to report to the Financial Services Commission? They are the ultimate regulator of the securities market, right? So essentially, everything that you send to the stock exchange, or everything that a listed company send to the stock exchange, they are required to also send such information to the Financial Services Commission, given the provisions in the Securities Act. Of course, listed companies are required to report to shareholders, because you need the information to know what is going on in the company. You need to know, should I continue to hold this stock? Should I sell? Or should I buy stocks in another company, right? And the only way you can get that is through the communication channels that the listed company uses to communicate to you as shareholders and prospective investors. And of course, we can't leave these persons out. You have the market observers, financial analysts, and I stated prospective investors, because, sometimes they're even, they are not so reserved with their comments, So where you file a financial statement and it's deficient, an analyst would pick it up and say, what is this? How can the board of this company release such information? How can the stock exchange allow this to go through? So, it is necessary, and that's how a market should really function.
We take our final break from the ICAJ Business Seminar, but we may have saved the best for last. Stay with us.
I'm Adam Stewart. This is Business Access TV, serious about business.
there are a lot of local companies who are really doing exceptionally well at the whole CSR initiatives and are doing good for Jamaica and elsewhere. And so, of course, with Cinco, everybody knows about their recycling program, which is growing and has, because of their initiative in schools, it means that they're encouraging young people to be environmentally conscious and aware. And they've also gotten big corporates involved as well. You almost are forced to embrace these kinds of initiatives because when they are making a choice in their spending dollar, they look at sustainable living brands, they look at companies that are purpose-driven, they look at companies that are giving back. So that's another good example of a local company who is really working the CSR program well. I would have to mention some of the work that the Grace Kennedy foundations are doing. So we have two foundations. We have the Grace and Staff Community Development Foundation, which started in the 1970s, and it's a very unique foundation because that foundation it was a staff initiative and continues to be. And it started in the 1970s coming out of employees noticing a great deal of turmoil in the communities surrounding our headquarters at 73 Harbor Street. And so they decided that they wanted to do something. They wanted to create positive initiatives that would assist these communities, and particularly young people. And so they went to the CEO at the time and said, we have an idea, we want to donate. And CEO Carlton Alexander said, sure, the company will, whatever you donate, the company will match it ×2. And that has continued. And so the foundation actually celebrated 40 years this year. And continues to do some really incredible work. So we have 6 homework centers. And what we realized, particularly starting in downtown, and now it has spread, we have in Majesty Gardens, we also have in De La Vega City, in Spanish Town, and we try to also place it close to where we operate. So we also have a homework center in Sav, where we make the hams, and we have one in Barbican near the Hilo. And what we've done there is given young people a space, a safe space to do their homework, to get tutoring, to get mentoring. We also provide psychological counseling. And right now, just over 600 students across the country benefit from those homework centers. And on Tower Street, we also have a STEM center because we saw that as an important need. And so this is not telling us anything that we haven't said before. At Grace Kennedy, we take a very holistic approach. We care is our mantra, and we apply that to everything. We care about quality. We care about our customers, and that's why we focus on quality. We care about our communities. That's why we engage with them to make the communities better. We, of course, care about our shareholders, right, Alison, because they have to get that return. And we operate with honesty, integrity, and trust in all things, as you can see there. That is right under First Global Bank. But it's not just our regulated entities, it's everybody that operates with that creed. And we can't do it without our staff. So there's a great deal of focus on our staff. And we find that particularly when we're attracting people, the work that we do is very exciting to them because we are working with our communities and we are trying to give back as best we can. And so I will leave you with what I thought was a really great quote to say that it's not really a hard choice anymore. If it's done properly, it really does flow to the triple bottom line. And it does benefit not only your organization, but the wider community. And so people not only want it, they have come to expect it. So CSR is not a choice, it's a responsibility. Everybody expects it of you these days. So thank you all for listening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching part 2 of the highlights from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica Business Seminar. It was held under the theme Achieving Growth, Sustaining Viability. Until next time, I am Tamara McHale. Keep watching Business Access TV, serious about business.
My name is Herbert Chung, Executive Chairman, Co-Founder, Honeybun 1982 Limited. You're watching Business Access TV, serious about business.
Coming up in this episode of Wealth Magazine Business Access, Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange Group, shares with us about how her formative years were balanced with play, moral building activities, and learning the principles of business from her parents. Street Forrest also recounts her professional pursuits, citing her work in many different industries over the years, among them her short-lived stint at farming and her passion for building the Jamaican economy by advancing the work of the JSE.
The stock exchange is a way to grow wealth individually and for the country at large. The stock market is not for rich people. It is a market for all of us. This is another form of investing, and everyone can look at investing in the stock market. My name is Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange Group. I'm the Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and originally I am from Portland. I attended the Titchfield High School. I'm passionate about my high school. I was brought up in business, and I'm so passionate about my country, so that I want to see businesses expand and grow, and for our country to do better. As I said before, I'm from Portland, and my parents were business people. And so as a child growing up from a babe, we were in the business. We had to work very hard within the business, emulating our parents who actually worked very hard. And so from an early age, I can remember us writing receipts, fitting up a kerosene stove, actually making those covers for mattresses, stuffing them. And so we learned to be industrious. And we recognize also that with everything that we got, the reward that we got was based on the work that we put in. We recognize that our parents loved us, but as a family, but that we had to also be involved in whatever they did. So from a young child, we worked. We did not consider it child labor, because we recognize that it was instilling that sort of discipline in us that was necessary and has served me well in my adult life. I was the youngest of 3 girls in the household, and we had fun playing. We played all sorts of games, snake and ladder, etc., and played with my parents. We rode bicycles to school and back, up the hill, down the hill. And my mother was very attentive. So in the evenings or before bedtime, she would read books for us. My father, attentive, but my mother was more so. My childhood was not always very happy, in some respect, because my father was an albino. And sometimes it was never, persons were never always kind to that situation. You were always ridiculed about color. And so you had to live with that as a child. It is something that, you know, in terms of the society, need to get a grip of in terms of how you deal with people with differences and how you embrace people with differences. The moral compass was very important for my parents. We were taken to church, and when we became older, we were sent to church. So it was quite fun from that standpoint growing up. It was not probably as funny as for other children, because as I indicated to you before, we worked. You know, so some of the times when other children, you saw them out playing, we were in the business place, and my parents had haberdashery, hardware, and so we were there working. My father had skittle tables and jukeboxes that were all over Port Antonio, and we had to go and clear them. We listened to the record. The good thing about it is that you knew almost every song that came out within that era, because you punched them and you played them. So it you know, there was a mixture. There were days that when you did not get the pocket money because business was not good. So again, that taught you that it's not all the while that you're going to have, you know, and there were times when business overall was not good, and those were lean years, and you had to live with that. But it gave you the sense of balance that most children need to have nowadays. I started prep school at 2.5, so I was at school very early, and went on to the primary level where everyone did the common entrance and was successful in common entrance, and went to Titchfield High School. And that is the premier high school in Portland, in Port Antonio. The interesting thing is that most persons, if they go to high school and they go to sixth form, it is 7 years. But I spent 6 years in high school, as I did my A-levels in 1 year. When you are in business, like my family, I had 2 older sisters growing up, and they were both in college. And sometimes business is good, sometimes it's not. And at that point, I made a decision at sixth form that I had to do my A-levels in 1 year. And then went on, was successful in the A-levels, and went on to teach. Obviously, that's a pre-trained teacher. I taught at a high school. For the next year, I taught at Port Maria High, and taught many subjects. And I am happy to say, very proud too, that the children were also successful, those that were in fifth form in their subjects. Then I went on to the University of the West Indies to do a Bachelor of Science in Management Studies. University life was interesting, though I did not live on, because by this time I was married. I got married very early. The course of study was good. I actually got an honors degree, graduated with an honors degree from the University of the West Indies. Met many friends there. Some of them are still friends today. My mandate at the JSU really is to use cutting-edge technology to develop the market. One of the things that we looked at was the creation of the junior market. Well, we all know that that has been extremely successful. We have seen an increase in persons investing in the market from about 2%, and now we are about 7% or so, which is good.
I'm 36. I'm a husband, a manager, and still very good looking. In 2 hours, I have the most important meeting of my life. But first, it's time to play. The new Suzuki Vitara.
When I left university, though it was a time when it was difficult to get jobs, because that was in the 80s, and that's early 80s, and you know, there was always the upheaval in the economy. Through again one of my friends on campus, I was able to get a job at the income tax department. She was working there at that time. And I went as a tax auditor. I audited companies, and it was a very, very good experience. You were told what to do, you explained, while persons say a lot of negative about government. I did not experience that at income tax department then. I experienced professional persons working, understanding what to do, treating the entire work that they had as a very, very serious. I left there and I went on to Jamaica Public Service. So I've been around. I went to Jamaica Public Service as internal auditor, and there the experience was also good. The persons that you worked with, you interacted with, were always very much concerned about your growth. And after that, I went to Caribbean Cement Company. And if there is a defining moment in terms of my work world, was Caribbean Cement Company. And under the watchful eye of the managing director then, called Mr. Compton Rodney, and he mentored me. And so I've had very positive experience with men. He mentored me, he showed me how, just how to behave in a professional manner, and took interest in your career and your growth. That's a mentor. He was a very, very good mentor. And, you know, I have not yet seen another like him in terms of how he mentored not only me, but others. We were always given books, additional books to read, to ensure that we kept abreast with current happenings. And so the experience there as a cost accountant was very good. I left Cement Company and I went on to Xerox. So I've been around. And I went there as their chief accountant. And again, positive experience. So there is the sort of span of the career. I went abroad for some time, came back to Jamaica, and I worked with JBC as their chief accountant, and spent some time there. Again, the focus was always what can you bring to the table that is positive. And their financials were, in terms of audit, were behind. And the one drive that I had was in ensuring that it was up to date. And by the time I left there, their financial statements were up to date. I think I left with that division being positive and went on to the Jamaica Observer. I was asked at the point when I was leaving, going to a company that was a startup, even if it had big monies behind it, as you know, it was owned by Butch Stewart and others. Why would you take that risk? But if you believe that you can make a difference, you'll take the risk. And I went to the Observer as a financial controller and left there as the assistant general manager. After leaving the Observer, I went on to work with the government again, Southeast Regional Health Authority. And I also went into farming. I went into farming because I felt that I had a passion for growing things, and I wanted to see how I could make a difference in this area. I did my analysis, and it was deficient because I did not factor in predial larceny. And so all the financials came out positive, and it would have been a positive experience, except that thieves got the better of my farm. And until the government does something serious about that, I think that agriculture can be an area for serious growth in the country. And not only growth from the standpoint of financial growth, but also in terms of social. When you are interacting with that soil, it gives you different, warmer feelings to even your fellow men. So it is important that we look back at how we treat with agriculture. But I left because it would not pay the bills, naturally. And as I said, I went to Southeast Regional Authority and then on to the Jamaica Stock Exchange, where I went as the deputy general manager with the focus on finance. My mandate at the JSC really is to use cutting-edge technology to develop the market, because the Jamaica Stock Exchange, what it does is operates different markets, and the idea is to ensure that in the operation of the trading of stocks over a market, or the encouragement of persons to come and do what is called initial public offering or list on the exchange, the mandate is to ensure that you have a transparent and efficient market. So one is about the technology, but the other is about people. So that continues to be my mandate. And so we have put in during my tenure, a little before I came, and during that period, the electronic trading platform. And that has worked well. We have had the Jamaica Central Securities Depository that does the settlement of those transactions. And at one point during my tenure at the Stock Exchange, I was also the general manager for the Jamaica Central Securities Depository. The idea, though, is how do you use that powerful medium to grow the economy, to make life easier for investors and also for businesses that want to access capital. And we had the main market, as you know, and one of the things that we looked at was the creation of the junior market. Well, we all know that that has been extremely successful, and that persons have bought onto the idea, both from the level of the persons, the issuers, the persons who come to market to raise funds, and the investors. So many persons now have started to invest in equity, just as other countries around the world, especially developed countries. And I'm happy about that. So we have seen an increase in persons investing in the market from about 2%, and now we are about 7 or so percent, which is good. When you go into an organization, get to know who you are working with, get to understand them, and so also that they can understand you, because people will make the difference.
This is Caroline Smith, marketing implementer for Sol Western Caribbean for Shell Lubricants, and you're watching Business Access TV, and they are serious about business.
The stock exchange is a way to grow wealth individually and for the country at large. So the other thing that we looked at is how do you ensure that 10 years from now you do not have the same problem that we had, in that older persons are just understanding about the market. So I'm happy and I'm proud about the stock market game that is within probably over 50 schools, high schools in Jamaica, because what that does is create that knowledge that you are not starting from base one anymore, but those students will now come out and understand that the stock market is not for rich people. That's something that I'm really just passionate about, that people know that this is not a market for rich people. It is a market for all of us. This is another form of investing, and everyone can look at investing in the stock market. So we looked at the stock market game, and in order to ensure that the perception was positive during my tenure, we board the decision, but during that time we did what is called move the company from a mutual company to a demutualized company, meaning it's not mutual again. The ownership of the exchange and the decision making, the regulatory, those are separated. So persons know that this company is transparent, and the decisions that are made are not made from a personal basis, but the regulation is within the ambit of the rules. I received a few years ago the Order of Distinction, Commander Class, and that's for development of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And from the World Recognition, an Afro Global Award from out of Canada. And from the Rotary Club of Kingston East and Port Royal, the award in respect to my involvement in business. And quite recently to the Jamaica Observer Leadership, I was selected as one of the contenders. These awards mean a lot to me, because it is persons saying that they think you are doing a good job. And from the standpoint that you do not necessarily want to be publicly recognized, that's for me really, but it encourages me. What it also does too is spur you on to see what more can I do. Though within yourself you want to do, and you are driven from your own internal being, it still gives you that push to do more, especially when some of the times when you are doing it's not always easy, because you get pushback. You would have known about some of the struggles we had with the junior market and some of the products that you're trying to develop. It still allows you to go on to something else, because not everything that you think will be a positive for your company, for Jamaica, not everybody will buy into it, and they might see things from another perspective. And it says to you, look, while this has not gone the way, go on, move on, continue. The highlight of my career, I would really say it's the junior market. I think it has opened up so much possibility for persons. And when you look and you see how many of these businesses are doing, and you feel that, in some small way, I had a hand in it. And when persons come up to you and they said, I invested and I'm doing so well, it makes you feel good. Again, also, I think the stock market game. And when you see the younger persons are now able to feel very comfortable about this subject, it makes you feel satisfied. So as it relates to building Brand Jamaica, I think my contribution is just the improvement at the stock exchange group, providing the services that are necessary to build the economy and to ensure that persons recognize that there are options to accessing capital, and one of them is accessing equity capital. When I started to work, I remember my husband saying to me then that I must know the people I work with more than the work itself, and that the knowledge of the work will come. But if you don't know the people, then you might not succeed. And that's very, very important. When you go into an organization, get to know who you are working with, get to understand them, and so also that they can understand you. Because people will make the difference. People either make the difference of not supporting you with your dreams, just the work itself, or not. And if you understand people, you also understand how to navigate difficult situations that will come about because you work with people. And it is the people why you succeed. You did not succeed by yourself. You did not. And, people would need to get over thinking that they did. You succeed because people assisted you. People worked with you. People bought into the vision that you are trying to sell, because it's a selling game as well. And if you understand people, sometimes you'll know when they're not feeling well, they are tired, what they want out of the situation as well. And I think as a result, that's the best piece of advice I have received, and I've used it throughout my career. I am twice married. My first husband died, and I'm married again. But I've always had a supportive family structure. I have 2 daughters, and they have been very supportive. And I now have a grandson, and even he is supportive of my activities. So I have been lucky. I've been lucky. My extended family, my sisters, they have also been supportive. And my mother, who is still alive, she's supportive as well. You get from them, they are the litmus tests, really, because you get the truth. There's no holds barred. They tell you just what they think. We operate from a standpoint of respect, and they share their ideas too sometimes with me. What you think about this? Probably that could work, and you feed from them. My family is really my all. Let me tell you what wealth means to me. I think the creation of wealth is important, because there are various phases in one's life, and you want to ensure that you have created an environment, a wealthy or sufficient environment, that in your twilight years you can afford to live comfortably. So that is wealth from a personal basis. I think it is important that from a country, we create wealth for the future generation. You don't leave them with debt. And it is important at all times for individuals, families, to create wealth intergenerational, so it can be passed down, so that the struggles of one society or one generation is not the struggle of another generation. And where you have that, the creativity, you can create more. You know, you can feed your country. So wealth is definitely important, which is, I suspect, why my focus and our focus at the stock exchange is that of wealth creation.
This 1 degree, you're able to do many things.
I think the field found me.
I'd rather work with the deceased than work with the living.
Let us open your mind to careers you've never considered.
Miniature model maker.
Game technician.
Animator.
Youth empowerment.
Career moves.
Anywhere money is, that's where I am.
J. Rare Nephew Limited has been in existence for almost 200 years. The company's philanthropic arm, the JWN Foundation, is much younger.
The JWN Foundation has been in existence now since 2012, so we're 5 years old. Of course, a very young foundation, but we are working really hard to develop our foundation, in terms of funding and, more importantly, the key areas of contribution that we will be making in community. Primarily, we target youth because there are really great needs for education, in particular, in the communities that we operate. We tend to focus on those communities that surround our operations. So we are in Kingston, Seaview, Waterhouse. We operate in Appleton, around the Appleton Estate area, in Silo and surrounding communities. So we make sure that we do that to impact those communities which are appended to our operations generally. We want to drive positive change of the attitude of youth in the communities that we are engaged in. We focus on really 3 pillars: education, social inclusion, and of course culture. That being part of our communities, and particularly Jamaican culture, which is very extensive. The projects that we articulate allow individuals in the communities to reach their full potential, in terms of engagement that we're providing and empowerment of these individuals so that they can come into being and hold their own. The key thing that we do is to make sure that for our remit, we operate in a way that is in keeping with our operations as a foundation. Very, very important. In addition to that, we solicit participation from ourselves internally with our staff and of course externally. Now sometimes you can have challenges because different entities may have different areas of focus, but we seek to ensure that there's this alignment. And for example, what we've had with GMMB as a case in point is good in that regard, that we've found a partner that is aligned with activities that we would want to undertake, particularly as it relates to education. So that has been good for us.
I've been a part of the JWN Foundation since last August. In the year that I've been a part of the organization, I've felt personally rewarded by the programs that the foundation has led on. Several community initiatives, several opportunities for the staff to interact and engage directly with persons from all of the 4 communities.
We really believe in corporate philanthropy. You know, our programs, we're very involved in focusing on the youth. We look at our scholarships. We engage youth. It's not just education, but exposure to. We have our train bury, which we got them on a train to see areas in this country that a lot of them have not seen before. Of note is the Conversations for Greatness program, which was basically conceived by JMMB, and we've come into partnership with them. And particularly because this program really is about empowerment of youth, involving teachers, you know, at the base level where we expect that germination of good, wholesome thinking and contribution to community. And that is very, very important for us, and we're seeing fruits. Already we have significant involvement on our sides in terms of a rollout and you know, adopting schools, not leaving out the participation, of course, of our employees, making sure that this program can move from strength to strength. And I think that's going to yield tremendous results going forward, because what this is doing is changing, altering the minds, altering the ways in which our youth think, our teachers think, and for that to build on itself and result in benefits for the youth going forward. Of course, I think we're making great progress. I know my team is putting a lot of effort in. You know, it's a young foundation. First, we have to ensure that we're raising sufficient funds. We're looking at that. You know, we have a number of initiatives to execute. We're looking forward to doing that. But we want to make sure that we're focusing on youth. And so when we conceptualize programs, we want to make sure that that is our central focus. So going forward, we will have stronger programs. We will have executions that are going to result in benefit to youth, and fundamentally that's where we're at.
Coming up on Caring Hands.
It really will be a head start for my daughter's educational fund.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters.
Call us at 876-291-6233 or 876-376-4225. Email sales@batvja.com.
Hey guys, I'm Candy and welcome to Chill Spot, Jamaica's ultimate leisure show. This season promises to reveal some of the hidden treasures of the lifestyle industry by taking you to the chill spots of some of Jamaica's most brilliant business minds, giving you a glimpse into how they choose to unwind and just hold a vibe. You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay tuned.
In keeping with its contribution to education, the JWN Foundation gives back through its annual scholarship awards.
The most important project, I think, for us is that of education, and we're really driven with education. We've moved from 25 scholarships, which we've offered, to offering 100 scholarships. So that's a fourfold increase. This is very important for us because that is how these communities, which have been hamstrung for years, are going to build themselves. They're going to have that more greater impact in the future because of what education has to offer. So that really is the centerpiece of our programs.
So last year I joined just in time for the annual scholarship awards and saw I believe it was 25 community scholarships awardees, and that has grown significantly. This year I saw that number quadruple to almost 100 being allocated, a little less take-up than we anticipated. But seeing that growth, seeing the growth in the number of applications, seeing the quality of the students has been quite rewarding and has encouraged even more investment in the community scholarship program.
Today we had a wonderful opportunity to present to very deserving students and indeed families bursaries, to support their educational advancement. And this is a very proud moment for us because we've been able to award to our employee students, 75 of them totally, scholarship bursaries. And in addition to that, we were able to provide bursaries for students of parents within the communities that we operate, a total of 65. What we've done here today is actually a threefold increase on what we did last year. And we had planned for it to be fourfold. But it's a start. And next year we'll be also pursuing getting more students involved and providing them this bursary, which will open opportunity for them in furthering their education.
What technology has done, technology has eliminated barriers. So somebody can stay right here in Jamaica and develop a solution to a problem and put it on a global platform easily and earn foreign exchange for it. That's what the technology has done. So when you think of your horizons are not confined to Jamaica or the Caribbean. You have a responsibility to do not just your teachers and your parents proud, but to do Jerry and nephew proud, because they are making an investment in you. The best example you can set is to strive for excellence so that Jerry and nephew can say, the money we have invested has borne fruit. So go out, change Jamaica. We want Jamaica to be a better place, a place that all of you can grow up, live in, feel comfortable in. The future is in your hands. Use this opportunity to take advantage of it.
One award in particular honors a woman who's very dear to J. Ray Nephew Limited.
Joy Spence is an icon in and of herself. Here it is, we have a female, the first female master blender in this world. One in several billion people. And she is one of us. She's a daughter of Jamaica. And she has excelled so much in her field of work. And it is fitting, we think, that the STEM scholarships that follows suit in the vein of science, because that's her forte. And to let both males and females, and in particular females, because we feel particularly motivated for that, to stand up and take their place in society. So we're using this as a vehicle to promote that, to promote the sciences, and to promote those of us who have that strong interest in science to pursue their preferred field of studies. And that only augurs well for our country.
I'm recipient of the Joy Spence STEM Award, which is STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics. I want to thank the Jerry and Neville Foundation for giving me this opportunity to pursue my dream, my passion, and I will continue to make use of this opportunity and try to be as successful in life as I possibly can. Thank you.
Words cannot express how much I thank the J. Ray Neville Foundation for allowing me this opportunity to go one step further towards furthering my education.
I'd just like to thank GWN Foundation for providing me with this scholarship. My mother being a single parent, sending me and my brother to UWI. It can get really expensive sometimes, and this is a major help in the rule of our life.
We would want to thank the JWN Foundation for the scholarship. It really will be a head start for my daughter's educational fund in going to Hampton this year.
I want to thank JWN's Foundation for the scholarship because my school fee is a lot and it will help the financial burden.
So I'm the first tertiary scholarship recipient. That was back in 2014. My journey was actually by surprise with Miss Bogues. She was the senior executive officer at the time, and we had a meeting and she discussed. I wrote a letter basically, and I said to her that I was having difficulty financing tertiary education, and I was having playing a benefit concert for the time. It was dubbed Music for Medicine. And she loved the idea, and she said, "How entrepreneuristic I was," or if that's a word. And she applauded me. And after that, I heard from her, and she said I was awarded with a scholarship. And I was surprised. I was like, "Really?" So I made this happen. I'm the reason why tertiary students are receiving scholarships now. So I feel proud of myself for that.
It's all right to crawl before you walk. It's all right to walk before you run. But if you gotta get what you never got, gotta do some things that you never done. Go get, go get, go get, go get your blessing. Go get, go get, go get it. It's your time, yeah. It's your time. That's it. You've been qualified, but His mercy multiplied. You cannot be denied, cause you finally certified. It's official, go ahead and testify. He's gonna bless you, you gonna bless Him. God be glorified. Say, go get it, go get it, go get, go get your blessing.
Coming up on Caring Hands.
In the end, you can't really make a separation between communities and companies.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters.
Call us at 876-291-6233 or 876-376-4225. Email sales@batvja.com.
I started out selling out of the trunk of my car.
If everybody think the same way, everybody going in the same line.
Being an entrepreneur takes everything that you've got. Weekends? What's weekends? We work on a weekend.
There are real opportunities everywhere you look.
But you have to have the passion.
If I do my part well, then everything is okay.
We believed in ourselves and our families believed in us.
Being convinced of this great opportunity, why we are all here doing what we're doing now.
Hello, my name is Blake Widmer. I'm the co-founder of Def Can Coffee. The exposure that we had to the just general community through Business Access TV itself is awesome. It was a big deal for them, you know, having BATV come here, and we were with you guys for probably 4 hours that day. It was a long time. We really appreciate your guys' openness to recognize that, yeah, captions are important. If a deaf person's watching it, how are they gonna understand what's being said? So. Looking back is just a big boost, encouragement for our team. If you're a business or an organization that wants to have yourselves featured on BATV, or you want to do advertising with BATV, what I would tell them is that you guys listen well and you ask good questions, and that will help, at the end of the day, deliver a really good product for your business too.
Your business matters. Promote it on Business Access TV.
One of the major events on the JWN Foundation's calendar is their annual Christmas treat.
We have several other facets of involvement in community. For example, we have a Christmas treat for the community's Seaview Gardens, Waterhouse, and we do it in St. Elizabeth too. So we make sure that there is that engagement so the youth can understand the existence of these operations in their community and see that we are well-meaning and we mean good, and we're committed to that process. in those treat, we talk about the kiddies treat that we have for Christmas. We've partnered with Nestle in that regard. So we have very robust programs of engagement in the community itself. The involvement has been tremendous. I mean, we had the Christmas treat and we had well over 100 staff getting involved in the execution of the treat. And you know, charity begins at home, so we're very happy about that. In addition to that, we've had partners in some of these programs. For example, the Christmas treat, again, we partnered with the Kiwanis, who helped us greatly in terms of that execution. So, you know, with GMB, we've had Conversations for Greatness, again, a partnership where we are sub but involved with them in that.
Christmas 2016, we were able to bring onto our Christmas inspiration theme site approximately 800 children, 10-year-olds. Now, these children were well behaved. We had persons lining up coming off of the buses, being very respectful, yes sir, no ma'am, and just to see the children come alive when they enter the Christmas space and receive the messages, the positive affirmation, and all the work that had gone into making the day all about them, enjoyable, empowering, reinforcing some positive values, really embrace that. And then towards the end of the day, seeing them sit on the lawn and complete their puzzles was really, really fulfilling, because we tend to give them the usual toys, dolls and so on, and we stepped away from that. We gave them puzzles because we wanted to educate while entertaining. We're going back to doing Christmas again this year. This time we are evolving the program, and so we're going to be targeting more children. We're also going to continue our message of inspiring and educating, and we can look out for more of that. It's going to be a very fun-filled day, and we're going to be bringing more resources to bear.
Of course, we also include our brands. So, for example, White Overproof, Renevue White Overproof Rum, we had that partnership where, you know, empowerment of females. So we had a lead role there with Alicia. Ashley, you remember her as a boxer, showing how women can hold their own and can be a force to be reckoned with. So it's a holistic approach and treatment of different areas that we can make that contribution, and we are doing.
In corporate, we tend to get caught up a lot in driving the efficiencies and driving the business bottom line. So being given an opportunity to give back in a real way and influence and impact positively lives of persons around us, future leaders, persons who will shape this country, was personally rewarding. It also aligned with the vision for the foundation to impact communities and change lives. Jamaica has a lot of challenges and as many opportunities. I think the Governor General says it best when he said there's nothing wrong with Jamaica that cannot be fixed by what is right with Jamaica. That message is at the core of the activities of the Renevue Foundation. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy and the necessary partnership in order for corporations to grow. You need to have healthy environments, you need to have communities that support the endeavors, you need to have a pool of labor for a labor to pull from that's educated, committed, engaged, and productive. You will only get that by making the investment into the communities.
Absolutely important for companies to have engagements with the community. You know, in the end, you can't really make a separation between the communities and companies, in that we operate in communities. It's the communities that consume the products which we sell, and we must make sure that that is an all-inclusive engagement where we treat with communities, we get the communities involved, we have an involvement that has the interests of communities at heart, and that's what we're seeking to do. What we've elected to do is to, you know, charity begins at home, as I said before. So we've started to engage communities which are on the periphery or which we are included in. So 234 Spanish Town Road, as a case in point, you have those two communities spanning the company on either side, and we have that level of involvement there. Absolutely important. And I think going more in broader terms, it makes sense for other companies, particularly major companies, to get involved here and make sure that we're shoring up the stability of the communities that we work in. We're mapping out a 5-year plan for engagement in our communities, and that is a work in progress. We're going to ensure that we have the full involvement of the community there. There are other opportunities. For example, we have the Seaview Music Club, I think it is, that we want to have that engagement in, and work is being done on that. And of course, we're looking for any other relevant opportunities that are available to us. Again, what we want to do is to engage youth and make sure that in a very general way, we're focusing them on activities that are going to build capacity and improve their outlook and possibilities for them going forward. Obviously, we'd encourage other companies to participate, because this is not about companies winning. This is about our youth winning, if you will. So to the extent that more of us get involved, it augurs well for the youth. What I think we can do too is ensure that there is alignment and probably less repetition of the same, but more, enforcing of areas of focus. So those of us in education can align with that. And for example, that is why we've elected to engage with JMMB on their program, because it is in keeping with our overall strategy.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters.
Call us at 876-291-6233 or 876-376-4225. Email sales@batvja.com.
The Good Life, your weekly dose of information on nutrition, wellness, and fitness. Discover ways to nurture your mind, body, and spirit.
In this 1 degree, you're able to do many things.
I think the field found me.
I'd rather work with the deceased than work with the living.
Let us open your mind to careers you've never considered.
Miniature model maker. Game technician.
Animator.
With empowerment.
Career moves.
Any weird monies, that's where I am.
I'm Chris Williams, CEO for Proven. When I think of Business Access TV, 2 words come to mind: passion and performance. In the short space of time that they've been on air, has demonstrated clearly the Jamaican passion for anything that we set our minds to. They have approached television in the most creative and dynamic way, and I'm proud to see how this young station has evolved. In terms of performance, they back up what they say they're going to do. All their programs, all their packages, all their promotions are efficiently and effectively executed.
I'm Adam Stewart. This is Business Access TV, serious about business.